And we have also activated Larry Krueger to join us here for this segment. Larry, thank you for much for joining us on Damon and Ratto.
Yep.
How are you, man?
Guys.
Thank you very much. Now, did you get golf carted over here, or did you use your own 2 feet?
No, I walked through the parking lot, and there is a lot of Niner fans having a very good time.
It's a perfect day for a football game. It's a perfect day for a football game. It's actually absolutely gorgeous out there. The tailgate out in front of us has been fantastic. I can imagine it's been getting a little choppy in the parking lot as well. So, look. The Niners need as much of a home field advantage as this place can give tonight, and having a crowd come in hot off of some good tailgating can maybe give this team the good start, maybe offensively, that it really hasn't gotten so far this year.
Yeah, they need some rhythm, right? They're really out of rhythm offensively, and how do you reestablish that rhythm? That's, a question up to Kyle Shanahan. Last year, they entered that Week 10 matchup, and I felt like Shanahan kind of made it a referendum on toughness, the way they came out. Just 18-play drive. I think it was like maybe a dozen runs in there in the 18 plays. And
they ran 44 times the last regular season game they played against this team.
And if you look at it, they didn't run that effectively. It was like 3 yards a pop, but they just stayed with it. And, you can run around or you can run through. And last year they kind of chose to run through. And I felt like it was such a referendum on toughness that when the Rams got beat, Aaron Donald was just irate from what I've heard. And then they went into that second game saying, we're going to show how tough we are. And they got away from their real advantage, which was Cooper Kupp on the Niners slot corner. By the time the playoff game rolled around, McVay had learned his lesson, and it was a lot of Cooper Kupp.
Well, the other thing that happened in that regular season game is the 49ers scored the first 2 times, and they had a 14-0 lead.
Yep.
And Kyle Shanahan is basically playing with the casino's money at that point.
Right.
Absolutely I'm going to run. You're not going to get the ball. And then they come back and they give up the touchdown to Higbee, and then he scored 3 more times.
Yeah. Wasn't it Jimmy Ward that had the...
Yeah, he had the interception return. So it wasn't an offensive triumph, but 14 points is 14 points. And, that's how Kyle Shanahan's offense best works. Give him a lead that's more than just a touchdown, and then he can defend it the way he wants to defend it. And I think part of his problem has been he's wanted to defend any lead he gets that way. Because 7 isn't enough against almost anybody. So you can't sort of go into your 44 run a game shell if you're only up a touchdown. I mean, he has to figure out a way to get a bigger lead, and then he can just stand on the other guy's throat.
It's a great point, because what happened in game week 1 and week 3, week 1 they got derailed by a dozen penalties. I think week 3 they got derailed by 3 turnovers, a lot of them late. That's what you're talking about. You can't have a team kind of hanging around if you're then going to make those kinds of mistakes late in the game and give them a chance to win. But if you can get a 14-0 lead, a 10-0 lead, I would say 10's the mark. But if you can get up 14 points or 17 points, run the heck out of it and maybe take 1 full possession away from Stafford.
Let's say it is something egregious like a 40-carry night for the 49ers. Let's give Jeff Wilson Jr. 20 of those just by default of him being the RB1 on the depth chart tonight. After that, do you think we're going to get... Will Jordan Mason get a carry tonight before we see Kyle Shanahan lean on, Tevin Coleman or, the other running... Do you think we're going to see the rookie tonight?
I will say yes, but you know what? Chris Forster has done a couple interviews, the O-line coach, and he always sounds like he doesn't want to see J.P. Mason, or there's some hesitancy to put him out there. Like he said a couple weeks ago when he sat down with us, he's like, Mason looked good, and he showed some things in the preseason. Let's see what happens when the lights shine brightly, and that was going into the Denver game. He got the 1 carry, he ran for 7 yards. He looked pretty good. I think most of us wanted to see more touches from him. I get the sense, Damon, that he will be in line behind maybe a Marlon Mack or a Tevin Coleman, just because he is a young player. He runs a little upright. There's always the propensity to fumble when you run upright. I think he's won over a lot of us, but we're easy to win over. I'm not sure if he's won over Lynn, Shanahan. Now also you have last year's running back coach is back with him as well. So Those guys are probably a little bit more harsh critics on how they want it done. And this kid is 230 and he can break tackles, but he runs upright. And rookie running backs notoriously don't hit the hole as fast as the Bobby Turners of the world want them to. So, we'll see how they evaluate at practice. My guess is Coleman gets the first run behind the starter.
Go Hoosiers.
That's right. He's a Hoosier.
Never miss an opportunity.
Never.
The other thing that's been noticeable about the Rams' defense is that they're better against the run than they have been in the past. So that maybe, that's where the game will be decided. If the 49ers can run the way they used to against this version of the Rams, then maybe that's the enduring advantage that is going to define the game.
They added a Hall of Famer in Bobby Wagner, and Bobby Wagner's long in the tooth, but he's still as good against the run. I think the one area, Ray, that I think is really interesting in this game is, if you guys remember last year's Seattle game, Wagner torched the Niners on those delayed blitzes from the inside backer position, just right up through the A-gap. And he's so smart. He's kind of like a linebacker version of Hufanga, who just reads everything and doesn't hesitate. Well, Bobby Wagner's the same way. If you're one of those young interior offensive linemen and you think you've got a handle on the surface, and all of a sudden you look to your left and here comes Wagner. He's going to shoot that gap. So does Bobby Wagner impact this game, not only as a run defender, but as a pass rusher? That's what I'm looking for.
Well, he's so familiar with the Niners, how they go about playing, how they go about blocking and setting up their schemes. He just has an incredible internal knowledge of the way the Niners go about their business. And, we always have to look at what Aaron Donald is doing, where he is on the field. He is a game wrecker extraordinaire. It's stunning, though, how ineffective he's sort of been rendered against the 49ers. Aaron Donald has 1 sack in his last 5 games against the Niners after having 10.5 in the previous 6 games against the 49ers. What, if anything, can you prescribe to that? Because this guy, we all know, he's a future Hall of Fame caliber game-wrecking defensive lineman. But Daniel Brunskill has had great afternoons against Aaron Donald.
He really has. I mean, where he's almost completely neutralized Donald. I think, and I don't have the absolute, statistical breakdown to say that this is absolutely law, but my sense of it is that Donald is so fast and he's so good in pursuit that most teams run away from him. And he gets you anyway. Where the 49ers, I think, fool him with a lot of the motions and the shifts. There's a lot going on pre-snap, and then they'll run right at him. And he, it's a combination of they just need you don't need that hold open long just for a second, and they get his eyes moving, and then they run at him, and his time to react doesn't. And they take his pursuit ability and they use it against him. I mean, that's what makes him special. He's arguably the greatest defensive tackle ever. Maybe better than Reggie White. Maybe better than Mean Joe Green. But where's he really better than those guys? His pursuit away from him is like linebacker-like. So I think they run at him, and I think they'll probably try to do a combination of things, but never gloat because just when you think you got him, he steps up and plays
and makes the punctuating sack of the NFC title game to wrap it up.
Exactly.
Offensively, the Rams don't look the same. They can't run the ball. They don't have enough running backs for starters, and they don't like to run the ball. Is this the game in which we find out for sure whether the 49ers are a truly elite defense or a defense that's pretty good against bad offenses?
Yeah, that's a good question, too, because the Rams I was looking at the splits. The Rams are 55-45 pass-run split. The Niners are the opposite. Niners are passing the ball 55% of the time, or running it 55% of the time and passing it 45%. The interesting thing is they don't have OBJ, and they don't have Van Jefferson. So they don't have the same weapons to put the 3 wides out there and really test you. They've been using Skoranek, the Notre Dame wide receiver, as in the backfield at fullback to kind of change up the look, make people pause, and to get that extra receiver on the field. But I think we're going to find out if the 49er D-line, minus DJ Jones and Kentavious Street, tonight minus Kinlaw, how good is it? How good is this D-line? because the Ram O-line doesn't have,
Whitworth.
Doesn't have Whitworth, but they also have some injuries as well. And if they can't move Stafford off the spot, it's going to be a long night. I mean, they have to move him.
We're here live at the Hilton in Santa Clara. It's great to have you along. We're getting closer and closer to kickoff tonight. It's Damon and Ratto on 95.7 The Game. Larry Krueger walking us up to kickoff tonight, basically, and welcome everyone to your 5 o'clock hour.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco. Always live on Twitch, YouTube, and the free Odyssey app. Damn well better be free.
So, look, when it comes to who might be the next guy in that backfield, I guess I forgot to bring up Deebo Samuel, because it seems like he is now appointed as an understudy running back as much as he's been asked to be this team's true primary number one receiver so far this year. He doesn't have the targets, the catches, or he doesn't even have a touchdown in the receiving game so far. I asked this of Michael Irvin, who insisted, he's still definitely a number one wide receiver, but I just look at him now more as a gadget guy than I see him as a number one wide receiver. And it seems like Ayuk has maybe asserted himself in that role.
I think Ayuk's got better ball skills. He's got better hands. He's got a bigger catch radius. He's just a better receiver. But where Deebo's a difference maker, guys, is run after the catch.
Yeah.
And what they're struggling with right now is they're using him as a running back, but he needs to get 3 strides. If he gets 3 strides, good luck bringing him down. I mean, especially if you can get 3 strides and he gets on that second level. Now it's Deebo and a backer. Or he gets to the next level, it's Deebo and a safety. And he's got 2-3 strides. You're not bringing him down. He's like T.O. in his prime with a little bit more compact, build. So what we've seen so far is they've used him as a runner a lot. But he's getting, before he can get to that second step, they're corralling him. They're keying him in the backfield, saying if he's in the backfield, he's going to carry it. He's not going to be a lead blocker. He's going to carry it. And then they're going a lot of east-west with him. They're not doing any of these fly sweeps where they're getting him on the perimeter. And he's not getting to the perimeter. And they're getting penetration and they're bringing him down. So to me, it's about, can you maybe throw him a few more passes instead of handing him the ball? Can you get him the ball within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, but with a head of steam? If you can, I think he's a much better player.
Do you think we see George Kittle out in the amount of patterns that I want to see him in? Feels like if there were ever a night to err on the side of caution and being, involved in blocking, run blocking, pass blocking without Trent Williams out there, with an offensive line that's, got a lot of new guys along for the ride. George Kittle needs to be out in pass patterns. George Kittle needs to be used as a receiving tight end more than a blocking tight end, even though maybe that's what he does the best. But he's got more catches, more yards, and more touchdowns against the LA Rams than any player in the NFL since he was drafted in 2017. And I think leaving him on the line of scrimmage to buy Jimmy, an eyelash more time, clearly that's important. But this guy's got to make some plays. I mean, that's this team needs an offensive player to make plays in a passing game. Since the quarterback doesn't seem to be the first guy to take that charge, it's got to be Deebo. It's got to be Kittle. It's not going to be Danny Gray, who, we still don't know what he's going to be, if anything, this year. I think Kittle needs to have a game where you feel him for them to win tonight. I think the Rams are winning this game tonight. I do. I think that the 49ers have so many offensive concerns that without their defense looking like an absolute juggernaut tonight, they're going to have trouble putting up 3 touchdowns until I actually see it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, actually. I don't. If you told me the Rams are going to win this game, I wouldn't be like, what? No way. I think the Rams have a very good chance to win the game. If I have one, kind of feel on this game, I think it's going to be low scoring. I think this is going to be a low scoring game. 49ers offense has struggled. Rams have a really good defense. Even though it's not elite, it still can cause a lot of problems. You got a true number one corner. You got guys you got to double up front. You got Bobby Wagner reading the thing in the middle of the field. So they're strong on all 3 levels. But I think the 49ers The 49ers have to show me that their offense is on getting back in rhythm. I'm never going to predict it until I see it. And I think the Niner defense is good enough with the Rams' limitations with their wide receivers, their limitations on the O-line. Stafford under pressure throws you a pick or two. I think this is a low-scoring game. I think this is a 23-10, 20-13, something like that, and either side could win.
11-8 with 5 safeties.
Exactly. Exactly.
Somebody tell Jimmy how many yards the end zone is this week.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I don't care. People saying, well, he's rusty. Nobody's that rusty. All right, this guy's played the guy played a full high school career. I watched high school football for days. I've helped coach high school football. I haven't seen a high school football quarterback drop out of the end zone. I don't see it in college. For Jimmy to do it and for people to apologize for it.
No, I mean, a lot of excuses have been made about, well, gee, he's out of practice. No, he's not. Okay, he stepped out of the end zone because he screwed up. He had an Orlovsky moment, period. What I'm more interested in is the notion that without Trent Williams, the 49ers are neither a good pass blocking team or now a very good run blocking team. If that's true, does it really matter who gets focused on in the offense if they can't block successfully? Because it seems like they are neither one nor the other at this point.
I think they're a much stronger run blocking line than a pass blocking line. Banks.
Well, but that's been traditionally true. But are they as good run blocking this year as they have been in the past?
I think they're better because I think like Burford on that 37-yard run that Jeff Wilson had in the first quarter, Burford just buried DJ Jones, and McGlinchey had a beautiful backside block, and Wilson took 2 steps to his left, cut it back, and there was nothing there. He had 2 steps and he was gone. I think Burford and Banks and now McKivitz are all good run blockers. McKivitz he's a short-arm tackle, so he's not going to be able to be that kind of a pass blocker. But you don't have Von Miller here anymore, so you've got that side not quite the same. The guy that I'm really interested to see as far as affecting what the Niners do up front is A'Shawn Robinson, because A'Shawn Robinson has not had a good start to his year. I don't think he has a single pressure on the year. And if you guys remember the NFC Championship, man, A'Shawn Robinson was just maybe the game of his life. He was absolutely huge. So, Ray, I think the answer is they ran behind Tom Compton at times last year. We forget that. You had Compton and Brunskill on the right side. Hardly big-time household names the last month of the year. And they had some success running behind them. I think McKivitz is a really good run blocker and understands the positioning well. But pass blocking is a totally different thing. So I'll say they're a stronger run blocking line.
Can they pass block? Well, let me ask it this way. If they're a better run blocking team this year than they were last year when Kyle Shanahan wanted to run the ball 40-plus times, and the only reason why he didn't in the conference final is because the Rams took that away, should we expect this to be the passing game breakout, or should we wait till Atlanta or Carolina?
The only way this is going to be the passing game breakout game is if the Rams defensive coordinator says, you know what, we don't have Eric Weddle anymore, but we are going to play that exact same plan. We're going to stick the extra guy on the line of scrimmage and give every indication that, make you want to spread us out and throw it over the top of our heads. So, and there could be some of that, but ultimately, I think that the 49ers, if you're going to try to beat this Rams team, you're probably going to want to neutralize the dynamic nature of their offensive attack. And I think Kyle Shanahan will try to do that by just trying to dominate the time of possession. I mean, we saw Arizona did a really nice job dominating time of possession against the Rams. And I just think that that's got to be the 49er game plan is dominate the time of possession and see if you can get up in the game and make them more one-dimensional. And then they don't have the receivers that they had a year ago. The big question, I think, is how much better are the 49ers against Cooper Kupp and the slot receiver with Diamador Lenore in year 2 and Samuel Womack and then Ward and Mosley on the outside than they were when these teams battled in the playoffs? Because they had no answer for Kupp in the playoffs. They really had no answer for Kupp in any of the games. The Rams just went away from them. They're not going to do that favor to the Niners today.
Kupp's last 3 games against San Francisco, 11 catches, 14 targets, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was the NFC title game. 7 catches on 7 targets for 118 yards and a touchdown. That was the game before. That was the week 18. And 11 catches on 13 targets, 122 yards, no touches. But Cooper Kupp, look, 29 catches, 382 yards, and 3 touchdowns against the 49ers just last year. And obviously that includes the postseason letdown in the NFC title game. How that carries the night, if the Niners are still stinging more from that defeat, other than leaning on the 7-3 regular season success that Kyle Shanahan's had on McVay, we're about to find it all out. If the Niners are winning this one, they need big games, I think, out of Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead. Let's see what you look like for the first time this year, basically. And Talanoa Hufanga has been all over the NFL so far. He needs to be all over tonight's game as well. I want to, Larry, be able to get you in there in time for kickoff. So last question from me, and then Ray can delay your exit as long as he wants to. It's been a week of concussion conversation, right? Really, that we haven't seen in a couple of years in the NFL. Without leading the witness in any way, what were your big observations from this topic as it's come up in the last, since Thursday night, and Tua got destroyed in Cincinnati? Where do you think we are on this? Where do you think the NFL goes with this?
Well, they want us to all say that they are addressing it with tremendous seriousness, and that this is totally on their radar, and that they're not doing things for the sake of doing things, but they actually have thought about this problem. But I just don't. I'll believe it when I see it. A star player who gets who's actually, his nonverbal's a little wobbly, or he's not quite moving right, and then suddenly you're going to pull him out of a game. Okay, that sounds great. And when the game's not going on, but what if wait until it's the playoffs and it's Josh Allen, and now that takes Buffalo out of the mix? Are they going to prevent Josh Allen from coming back on the field? Or is it going to be like I mentioned to you guys off the air? Is it going to be like Doug Fister in the World Series against the Giants, where somebody hit a line drive off the side of his melon, and he didn't even come out of the game. He just kept pitching. Why? Well, because he said it was
the World Series.
He said he was fine, and it was the World Series. Are we going to is the magnitude of the moment going to factor in at all? And should it? I don't think it should if we're talking about strict medicine and we really care about the players. We're going to say that this is the player's safety is our priority. Is it? Or is a team from a major market whose quarterback is now going to be knocked out of the game or knocked out of a future game, is that the priority? Are we prioritizing dollars and cents and ratings and that kind of thing? Or are we prioritizing?
You just answered your own question.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to think when medicine's involved that dollars and cents would still take a back seat, but that's naive.
No, it's not. You're right. It's not only naive, it's preposterous because they ultimately don't care. That's the lesson here. It's that they've never really fully addressed how to evaluate this stuff. They think it's a negotiating tool rather than a medical priority. Because if it's a medical priority, it seems to me that the best short-term thing is to just say, that looks like it might be a head injury. You can't play again today. But then that opens up another can of worms, which is what's the downside to just having somebody haul off and hit a quarterback in the head 5 steps late? You get thrown out, but he doesn't get to play anymore. Because look, there's no more cynical game than football. So, where does this line begin or end? And I think the NFL just tries to figure out what will cost them the least amount of money.
It's interesting you brought that up, too, from the standpoint of what do you think of the idea of taking the person who delivers the punishment and taking them off the field until that quarterback's ready to roll? It's still not a fair one-on-one deal because it's a quarterback versus a safety or quarterback versus an outside backer. But it seems like there's no real price to pay for going after the quarterback now, so at least that would add to
unless you make
deterrent factor.
Unless you make it a fully suspendable thing where you go, you not only don't play again today, you don't play again for several weeks,
and you don't get game checks.
Yeah, make it a deterrent that will even cause them to not even risk it.
Yeah. Is the entire division 2-2 by the time we sleep tonight, or is the entire division 2-2 except for the Niners?
I'm going to say the 49ers get it done. And the only reason I really feel that way is because the odds seem wrong to me. I think the Rams should be favored by 1.5 or 2, and that the Niners tells me that, maybe there's some equation here. I would say the guy that I expect to have a big game if they do what I expect them to do and slide the line towards Nick Bosa is Samson Ebukam, who I think Ebukam's going to party in the backfield.
Ebukam revenge game.
Yeah, this is a 3-sack night for Samson Ebukam.
Larry, thanks so much for stopping on by.
Good to see you guys.